We're waiting on our final member. I think he's coming up the stairs and we'll get started momentarily. I think Harold Griffin is on his way up here. And as we speak, Harold's here. I'd like to call this public hearing of the Henry County Council to order on this date, which is July 25th, 2024. As it shows, if you didn't pick up an agenda on the podium, please do. As it shows, the first part, the first half hour is going to be something that the legislature allows just the Henry County Council to act on. And that's a consideration of adopting an emergency or EMS lit local income tax, as well as a judicial lit that both the state legislatures have updated and allowed us to do. That'll be the consideration for roughly the first half hour. There'll be opportunities after it's presented and discussed up here, 3 minutes per person, please, to come up to the podium for or against, comments, Q&A, whatever you desire. And after you're done doing that on relating to the EMS and the judicial lit, then we'll adjourn this part of the meeting. We'll have a work session until 5:30. And 5:30, we'll be taking up a consideration of increasing an existing public safety lit. And we'll go through the same process. But at that time, the entire tax council of Henry County, any representative from any incorporated town that wishes to be, the Newcastle City Council, we have room for them up here. Others from other incorporated towns, please come up to the front seating. I wish we had seating for all 20 of you, but we don't. After we decide if and how much to increase our existing public safety lit, then we'll turn it over to those who have requested from the volunteer fire departments, as well as the Newcastle Henry Township Fire Department. We'll turn the meeting over to that discussion. So it's going to probably be a few hour meeting. So Travis, get your pen out and listen to the YouTube afterwards, because there's going to be a lot of information. At this point, we have opened up the public hearing for consideration, first of all, of an EMS lit. I'm going to turn this over to Shannon Tome, a Henry County Council member who's done a tremendous amount of research and is responsible for a lot of the handouts that are on the podium. And I'm going to turn it over to him because he knows a lot about the subject.
And before we get started, we do the pledge and the prayer.
Yes, that is on the agenda. Thank you for reminding me. That's our normal process. If you please stand, Betsy's going to lead us in the pledge, and I'll lead us in a short prayer. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle, for reminding me. I guess I haven't been looking at my own agenda very well. I'm going to open it up and turn it over for an overview to Shannon Tome. Now, it's up to you, Shannon, if you want to take one at a time, because we'll probably vote on EMS and then followed by the judicial. But as far as your summary, that's up to you.
Okay, I'm happy to do a summary on each of them individually. The EMS option income tax or local income tax is provided to us as a tool to garner funding for emergency medical services. This was done by our good friends at the state legislature, and they acknowledge that we need to have funding to be able to do this. So a couple of years back, a contract was negotiated with the city of Newcastle to provide services. They are advanced life support services outside of the city limits. I believe the first year of that was maybe paid out of ARP funds. And last year was the first year, or I guess last budget session for 2024, we had to come up with that $300,000 out of the budget to pay the city of Newcastle. So this is a expense that we need to plan for and moving into the future. We've been told that it will continue to be $300,000 in 2025. And in addition to that, we have had some restructuring and growth and changes in our Henry County EMS that has traditionally not been receiving tax dollars to operate. They operate on what they receive from insurance companies for doing the work that they do. They have indicated that to continue to grow, they are going to need some additional funding that would need to come from tax dollars. So a 0.04% was advertised for the EMS lit, and that provides roughly estimated based on 2024 receipts, $450,553. That's about, it's not really rough, is it? That's a pretty precise number. But $300,000 of that would be used to pay City of Newcastle for the ALS services, and the remainder would be used to help provide support for Henry County EMS services. With that, I'm happy to take questions from council members before we turn it over to the public, I guess.
You did mention ALS stood for Advanced Life Support, and currently only, which is required by law, each county, and currently Newcastle EMS is the only one providing that, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
I'll just make a brief comment too, that when we absorbed the EMS expense into our budget last year, there weren't necessarily additional funds for that. So we did reduce the funding for our sheriff's vehicles, which is something that needs to be a priority for the county to keep our sheriff's vehicles up and running. So there was impact to absorbing that expense into the budget, which we need to plan for next year.
The 300,000 would have also been able to provide 3% additional raise, because it costs about 100,000 for us for every 1% raise in our employees' salaries. So 300,000 went out of the general fund to the city of Newcastle because by law, we have to provide ALS service, and currently Newcastle EMS is the only entity in Henry County that provides advanced life support with paramedics on each run.
Middletown also offers ALS service. Middletown, no? We're only BLS now? I did not know that. Okay.
Okay, we've learned something. Thank you. So I believe they are the only one that provides advanced life support with paramedics on each run that calls for that. Currently our Henry County EMS provides transport for individuals that need such transport that are not emergency or advanced life support. Questions I know Shannon has done a yeoman's job of providing data. He's worked feverishly for the last several months. He's worked with the fire departments, the fire chiefs. He's worked with EMS. I know some of our liaisons, we all are assigned to about 5 to 8 liaisons in our departments, and most of our council members have met with those departments, either heading into the budget, which our hearings on the 25 budget starts next week, or relating to the lit taxes for those who had questions and how it might affect them.
I might also say thank you to the auditor and her office for printing the pounds of paper that they received this morning to get printed and put in order for us to be able to review today.
And a disclaimer, we did not saw down the rain tree on to do the paper for the printing, because there probably was a tree that gave up their life for this, but it's worthy of people being informed.
I'm going to make one more quick comment too. We are reviewing wages right now for the county and looking at how far off an average market wage different groups of our employees are. And our EMS employees are actually the farthest off market average of all of our employees. And so this gives us an opportunity to address those concerns as well.
Just a matter of information, we did receive the tentative draft copy of how far off, I think 12 of our 15 categories of employees. Addie Rooker from Wagner and Sheila is working on the last 3. But just substantiated what we knew. We have a ways to go to be more competitive with the salary of our employees. We are among the lowest in Eastern Indiana. We will never compete with the donut counties or Hamilton or Boone or Marion County, but we're not competitive in the current state. So that is a thought to one reason we need to consider some of these lits tonight is tremendously underpaid and not competitive. Ever since the state put in the tax caps in around 2008, our reserves have gone further and further down to the point when Susan and I took office in 2019, we had a 1.25% general fund balance. Baker Tilly has informed us we need about 50% general fund cash balance. We have dug ourselves out of that hole somewhat. We're in better shape. We are able to give better raises the last few years. But when Chrysler closed, Modern Fold closed, Metal Dine closed, Allegheny closed, Dana closed, et cetera, closed, our revenues have plummeted about the same time that the state put on tax caps, which affected most of all counties and municipalities more than any other entity. Last year, they put on a cap of assessed valuation of 4%, even though property values have gone up about 10% in Henry County. It was an election year, and the legislator said, we capped your property taxes. Revenues we could have gotten, we were not able to get. So that's what we fight. I'm not against the state legislators. I would not want their job. But we're considering this because when you talk to your state legislators, they say, have you adopted all the local income taxes we've allowed you to? And we say, no, we have not. Henry County is among the lowest as far as the median household income. We have 92 counties. Only 18 counties have a lower median household income than families in Henry County. Out of 90, we're in the lowest 20%. Legislators' answer is, you need to raise it to the max. We don't care what it does to your citizens. We've given you the opportunity. We've capped your taxes at the state level. You've got to make up for it at the local level. We cannot compete with the Hamilton counties, period. We never will, but we don't have 1/20th of the industry and business as Hamilton County has. So to think we can compete with them is nonsense. What else?
I'll add a little bit of context in that the state legislature has, in 2022, passed a law that will be reducing the amount of income taxes taken out by the state of Indiana. At the time that law was passed, we were at 3.23%, and they have since reduced it to 3.15. Their goal is 2.9. And that is going to happen it's supposed to happen by law by 2029. The legislature has a goal of 2027. They did that because, as we all know, the state is sitting on billions of dollars in reserves. We have been the beneficiary of some of those reserves. As they have reduced the state income taxes, they have provided what's called supplemental lit. So for our income taxes that we receive locally, they have been returning some of that to us. We have not budgeted for that amount. We have looked at that as that's extra. We can bank that in our reserves, and we can't count on it to be there. And we know we can't count on it to be there because it's going to go away at some point. So that has contributed, that's been $3.9 million over the last 4 years that have been returned to the county. We have availability of those dollars to use those, but it's not sustainable. We can't use them because they won't continue to be here. We are trying to plan for what the taxes will look like when those dollars that are being returned are no longer available to us. That is one of the major reasons why we are looking at these income tax changes, to be able to support our employees, our county, the residents, long-term.
Just to reiterate, the main point is, by law, we have to provide ALS service. Last year, the 300,000 that were contracted with Newcastle EMS to provide the legal advanced life support for the citizens of Henry County cost us 300,000 because that's the agreed to contract. We by law have to have that service. That was 300,000 that we did not have budgeted prior in our general fund. That's 300,000 that we weren't able to do other things. This lit will provide that. Now, if the vote is for 0.04, which was discussed at our last meeting in June, our first meeting in July, pardon me, 300,000 of that in 2025 would go to Newcastle EMS, and the additional 100 and whatever you said, 50 or so, would go to Henry County EMS as they're striving to add more services and higher levels of services. Mandy has spoken to us 3 times in January and the spring and again last month of their plans to expand the Henry County services. Beyond that, that's the rationale for having that. When we got the Wagner-Irwin-Shealy report, most of our categories of jobs are between 5 and 20% below market, which are 15 other counties they compare us with that are comparable in assessed valuation, population, debt service, and those kinds of things that they look at. We're not competitive. We lose a lot of people. We have to be cognizant of that because we hear it from our department heads. That's the main reason we're considering this. Other council members, we'll need if not, we'll need a motion pretty soon and we'll need a vote.
I would like to move to public comment.
And Kenny, do you want to also cover the judicial lit at the same time, what that purpose is, and then have a public hearing where people can address
We
both?
would vote on them twice.
Yeah,
So
I
you did
think,
it
yeah,
separately?
you have to adopt each ordinance, but I think you can
Okay.
conduct the public hearing where people can comment on both ordinances. So
I'll be happy to give a
if you wanna
quick summary
explain
of
the
the
purpose of
judicial.
that.
Okay, the judicial won't take very long, then we'll open it
Yeah.
up to public comment.
Yep.
The judicial lit is proposed at 0.01%, and the limit that we can, to have on that, that's the highest that it can be, because it is put in place to cover 50% of the wages for the court reporter, court bailiff, and administrators. The maximum amount we could collect is $177,511. The 0.01% will bring in $112,638. Anything more than that would be too much. This is something that we are still pursuing simply to pay for those costs for the court and free up those dollars in the general fund to be used for taking care of our employees, which has been mentioned here a couple of times already.
Any questions from the council? I'm going to open it up to the audience, 3 minutes per person to address what's been discussed about the EMS lit that's being proposed and the 0.01% judicial lit. Please
Kennedy.
come up to the microphone and identify your name and where you're from.
Shannon, do you want me to keep time?
3 minutes. Yes, please do. Your green light on. If not, press the button.
Rob Davis, resident of Henry County. I've stood before this council before. You guys will all remember I am not anti-safety. I am pro-safety. But every time you want to reach in my pocketbook and take more of my money, you're going to hear from me. First of all, I guess you probably all had to have campaigns. You probably all campaigned on the fact we're not going to raise taxes. We're going to balance the budget. We're going to do all those things. Well, here we are, right? You guys are reneging on that. And I guess Henry County is the 76th poorest county in the state, which I think you referred to. Comparing us to the average is probably not legit because we're way below average. And why we should necessarily consider inflation in the numbers that you're talking about, the expenses going up, but not in wages, because residents are paying that inflation too. And it's an impact on them. I guess one thing you've not addressed, is this a forever enactment of taxes, or is this annual? How many years are you asking for?
This would be annual unless it's halted by the council. Yes, and to be honest with you, as a citizen,
I hope
don't know
you'll
very
always
many-
be honest.
I don't
with
know
me.
of very many taxes that are ever suspended.
I agree. We sat in 5 years ago, we sat talking about the safety limit because the sheriff needs new cars. And that it would, once they got those, we'd get rid of it. Well, we obviously haven't gotten rid of it. We've moved everything from the general budget that was in the safety budget over into the safety limit so that we could have more money in the general budget. We all know how this works. But once again, you're back in our pockets for that. I guess you have gotten almost $4 million over the last couple of years from the state. What happened to that? Why can't some of that be used to pay the 300,000?
You want to answer? I've got my answer, but you probably have your
It
answers.
can. There's no reason why it can't be. We have been digging ourselves out of a hole for 5 years. As they mentioned, they came into office in 2019 with 1%. And recommended for all counties in the state is to have a 50% reserve. We have put those dollars into reserve. Can they be used for things? Yes, they can. This council has chosen to build our reserves to try to stabilize our budgets.
300,000 against 3.9 million is less than 10%. So you could take 90% of that and still do it to what you're talking about and move forward. I guess the other last item, I guess maybe that I'll talk about is I have no illusion that this isn't going to pass. I'm assuming this is going to pass. And in fact, I think it's a little bit unnerving on your agenda. It says you're going to stay here and vote until you get a favorable vote. I think that is really insulting to the voters, that the public have no voice in this. And with that, I guess you've heard from me before. I'll be back in a year when you go to renew this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
I thought you said that the 300,000 came out of the general fund
And Debbie, you can correct me. I thought it came out of public safety lit. It didn't come out of this general fund?
Okay,
Okay, I just want to correct that for the record.
that's fine. It's a pool of money that operates the county. And we've shifted between, last year, we shifted a lot between jail, public safety, and general fund to be able to pay the bills, all of which was legal. Anyone else?
Dave Wagner, Middletown. I understand about Henry County EMS has been a transport service and they've been funded by the revenues that they're able to generate, just like private companies such as SEALS. And now we're contemplating giving them taxpayer funds. And I'd like to know how the mission is going to change, or are we going to help finance them continuing to compete with private business?
What I know of the subject is most counties contract out transport services to private individuals who bill and are not supported by taxpayer money. That's my research. Anybody else? We are probably the exception in that particular area. I do know that Henry County is planning on expanding beyond the transport service.
Okay, and the other point I'd like to make is that inflation has been 22% over the last 5 years, and that has not impacted Middletown EMS any less than either of these other two organizations. I don't see any money earmarked for Middletown EMS in this at all.
That is correct. And what we're discussing today, it is not included.
And why is that?
It's not been asked for or brought to our attention.
Middletown EMS has the opportunity to come ask for public safety lit dollars at any point, of course, it's annually.
As long as they do it before 5:30 today?
Now, as long, request had to be done prior to July 1st of this year. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Joel.
I would
but-
suggest, since you brought it up, and we've not heard about it, the legislature and the public safety legislation that was adopted in this county in 2016, that it does say in that legislation, you can request it annually. And they moved up the date recently to July 1. And so the fire departments that got their request in by July 1 are being considered later today. Those are not, are going to have to wait until before July 1, 2025.
Okay,
But my
Thank
only
you.
answer is that it's not a closed discussion. So we appreciate you coming tonight, and I think there's further conversation about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Justin, right?
Yep. Justin Harrison, Assistant Chief with Newcastle EMS. The $300,000 number, when it was discussed 2 years ago, was a number that we felt for when we were looking for a new ambulance to replace a fleet that has been ran pretty hard over the years, and that was the original 300,000 number. That number is nowhere near what it costs to operate 911 services in the county. There is no contract for 300,000 for next year. Our request for next year will be $425,000. I am more than happy to break that down to the exact cent of how we got there and what it actually costs to operate for the county outside of the city limits. I do want to touch on one thing with Middletown EMS. They are a 911 ambulance provider. They are not part of the public safety lit. They would be part of the EMS lit. They provide 911 services within Henry County.
And last year, we passed for 2024, a PSAP tax for 911 services. So when it gets to that point, if it's requested,
That is for dispatch services, not emergency medical ambulance services. They are emergency medical ambulance that responds to calls from 911.
okay, should we get a request from Middletown, we'll need to involve our attorney, you who are experts in the field, and we'll do what's legally allowed and not do what's not allowed from the proper fund. This is new information tonight is concerning Middletown, so it's good to know. We're learning several things tonight.
Yes.
I think that your comment is true, that the 300,000 is not sufficient. And that's something that we understand, and planning for the potential increase in the future is one reason to consider a 0.04% rather than a 0.03%, because if we pass 0.03%, then if that contract price goes up, then we're not able to cover it, so.
Absolutely. I just wanted to be clear because the 300,000 numbers got thrown around quite a bit and that's not anything that was agreed on for
The
2025.
reason for that is our commissioners contacted the mayor and he said that's what it would be for 2025.
We have a commissioner and the mayor in the back of the room, and we received acknowledgement that the official number for 2025 that we can put in our budget is $300,000.
I've not been made aware of that or seen anything. I'm not aware of that being an automatically renewing agreement.
Our suspicion is it's going to be 300,000 based on what was just said on the contract for 2025. Very likely is going to increase after that.
I
To talk to the mayor. Okay? There have been communication between the commissioners who do contracts, we don't, we do budget, and the mayor. And for 2025, 300,000. Beyond that, we understand there's from what's being said, a likelihood that's going to increase based on your costs being more than 300,000 to provide that service for the county. Just get with the mayor.
exponentially more.
Yeah, just get with the mayor.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? The first part of the meeting is specifically an EMS lit, which would affect the average citizen a small amount, a judicial a smaller amount. The amount that's really going to affect your pocket is the discussion at 5:30 is the increase in the public safety lit. But Ernie, I know you. I know your voice. You're an auctioneer. Go ahead. Identify yourself even though I know you.
Well, I would just, a few things about the budget or the expense that is occurring. And I know the Mr. Shannon Thom, I don't know you, but I know you made reference to inflation, which is a key enemy, but the taxpayers, they face inflation also this time. Not only do they face inflation, but they're going to have an increase in city water, going to have an increase city sewage. We're going to increase in property tax due to assessments. So more tax money is coming in through the assessment. And then how many councilmen here, how many vehicles are in our fleet that we're supporting? Can anybody address that?
I'm not sure I understood. Could you repeat that, Ernie?
How many vehicles are in the fleet that's supported by the county?
Well, we have sheriff fleet and then we have a fleet of about 10 or 15 other vehicles and then a large fleet in the highway department. That's another tax rate.
And
Does
does
anybody have
every,
that answer? I don't.
and does every department head have his own personal vehicle? That's a major expense. Now, I'm not up here to
No.
criticize.
No. Outside the sheriff deputies, they do not have their personal vehicle.
Okay,
The highway engineer had one, but that was provided by another county where he shared the engineer with Randolph. They provided one, we did not. So just the sheriff deputies have that ability. And part of the philosophy I understand from law enforcement is visibility of law enforcement vehicles around the county is not a bad thing. That there's an issue with the sheriff. He has
okay.
that,
And like I said, I'm not here to criticize the EMTs and this and that. I've been hauled in twice. I've collected money when I used to work for Chrysler. I collected money when I used to work for Modern Fold. At one time, Chrysler bought them a new unit every so many years. But I guess the vehicle or is Newcastle compatible with Anderson and Muncie according to their fleets, the MTs, and the budget?
let me clarify something, because you brought it up, other people might have this same thought. What we're dealing with now is the county outside of Newcastle. and basically outside of it's outside of Newcastle. Newcastle has their own fleet, they have their own mayor, they have their own city council, which will be up here at 5:30,
Mhm.
talking about another lit, which they have a say over. The only thing I think we could well address are the county vehicles. The only ones that we know of, I know of, that's allowed to go home are the sheriff deputies. Everybody else that has one, which are maybe 10 other departments, the health department has one, building maintenance, weights and measures. There's a few others that have a vehicle, but they stay here. Really?
There are some department
Well,
heads that do, but not
I've
all.
been
department
educated
heads.
again. I did not know that. I honestly did not know that. Ignorance is not bliss, Ernie.
Okay. Well, that's about all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good seeing you too. Used to work at the high school. Anyone else? Gone? Okay, before us is information, we're considering up to a 0.04% EMS lit. 300,000 of the 450 will go to our obligation to provide advanced life support for citizens that's provided by Newcastle EMS. The rest will go to, at least for this coming year, will go to the Henry County as they are expanding and wishing to expand their services beyond simply transport. 0.01 is what Shannon described. It pays for a small portion of the court services that's allowed by law over in the Justice Center. That'll free up a little over 120,000 so we can meet expenses and maybe give the kind of raises that we're far behind with. Other than that, any other discussion? If not, entertain a motion for some amount of each slit, and we'll start with the EMS slit.
I will move that we approve a 0.04% EMS lit.
Do I hear a second?
I will second.
It's been moved by Shannon, seconded by Susan to adopt a 0.04% EMS lit. Any discussion? My only discussion is I'm going to vote no because I'm going to vote for the bare minimum that I know we have to have, which is the 300,000 for Henry County. That's my discussion. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
I think it's worth to consider what the cost could be next year based on the conversations and points that have been brought up today. So I think we always have to look and take into consideration the future as well.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm just going to take the stand of the citizens to do the bare minimum, but that's a point well taken. And we can change this a year from now. If it goes to a contract of 425,000, we can up that. I know I've heard people say, let's take the Band-Aids now and maybe 4 years from now, next election, they'll forget we did this. No. I'm for doing the bare minimum and we can entertain that if that goes up. Yeah, Harold, press your button.
I have to agree with you, what?
Any other discussion? A motion's at hand of 0.04%. Adoption of a new EMS lit allowed by the legislature. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. I can tell you the three nays are me, Harold, and Mike. Motion passes. And again, this can be raised next year if deemed necessary. It does pass, however. Now we're going to consider a 0.01% judicial lit allowed by the state legislature to help pay for the some of the administrative costs over in the Justice Center and the court system. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt a 0.01% judicial lit.
Second.
Moved by Susan, second by Betsy. Discussion. My only discussion is this will help us provide for increased raises that we're far behind on. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the 0.01% adoption of the judicial lit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Next 20 minutes, we have a work session. You should have an update. Oh, we need,
I move to close the hearing.
it's been moved,
Second.
seconded, that we adjourn the first public hearing on the EMS slits discussed. We'll adjourn for 20 minutes. 5:30, we have the Newcastle Council joining us up here. Three of you will have a mic that you'll need to press the right button to be able to speak. Others share the mics on the ends. Once you press the button, it stays green, it's live. So that'll be convened at 5:30, which is roughly 20 minutes from. I do thank everybody being here. After the public safety lit discussion, which is a discussion on the increase, only then when we know how much money we have, then the fire department's requests will be entertained, I'm gonna guess sometime after 6. So as the agenda says, so but we thank everybody for being here, so. The restroom exists right behind the back doors at the top of the stairway to your right. Yes, the work session is now in session for the next 20 minutes. The only thing I have to share is I handed out an agenda for our budget sessions, which is filled up on the 31st, which is next Tuesday.
If it's okay with you, Ken, and I'll add to the work session, county council members. Underneath of the frequently asked questions document is a printout of the email that I sent to you that highlights the information from Addie Rooker at Wagner Irwin Shealy. And I was gonna try to read the percentages into the record, but
It's gonna be tough.
it's this one.
Hi, Jeff. Okay, council. Debbie's passing around ordinances to sign that we just passed. If you didn't hear Shannon, look over your packet and some of the initial information from Wagner Irwin Shealy we got yesterday is in your packet to study. It's the one that shows we're 5 to 15, 20% below salaries. Council, just a reminder, we're in the midst of a work session, council. There are 2 papers for Debbie, our auditor, for you to sign. You can do that as pass it down.
I'd like to read for the public, actually, the percentages that were given to us by Wagner Irwin
Can you have your
Shealy.
attention, please? Just for 5 minutes. This is pretty important, what he's about to read.
I know we've all been anxiously waiting, any county employees anyway, have been anxiously waiting numbers and documents from the full job classification study by Wagner Irwin Shealy. It is not complete. We hope to have it complete by end of next week. And Addie Rooker will be here on August 5th to review the full report. But in order for us to consider our income tax concerns today, she provided us with some documentation. And the documentation provided a approximate cost to get all employees up to 10% below the midpoint for their wage class. That cost would be $589,000 annually. To get them completely to the midpoint, that cost would be just under $1.6 million. That tells you how far off we have been in keeping up with wages for our employees. And I'm going to tell you that our LTC, which is labors and trades, is 12.43% to get to midpoint. Our PATs, professional, administrative, and technical, are 14.64. Our COMOX, which are computer and operators, is 20.89% below midpoint. We have an executive level that is 19.3% below midpoint. Our merit polls, which are our sheriff's department merit officers, are 23.76% below. Our 911 polls are 12.83%. Our civilian polls that work in the Justice Center and at the jail are 17.98%. Our EMS polls are 36.79% below. And a few of our special occupations attorneys are 21% below. Those numbers there give you a rough idea of why we need to provide better wages for our employees. They are severely underpaid, just like others are. Wanted to share those numbers out loud with everyone.
I wanted to add too, for those who haven't been part of that discussion before, that these market averages are comparing us to like counties. So we are not comparing ourselves to Marion County. This is a professional report comparing us to counties like us of like size, taking into account our competition in surrounding counties, but also comparing us to counties that match us. So when we talk about average market, we're not talking about the private sector. We're not talking about the donut counties, Marion County. We're talking about other counties like us and how far off average we are from those counties. So these are very significant shortages. And we see that in practical ways when we see employee turnover and when we see ourselves unable to replace people who have left. So these are observable things that we're watching. Many times in the past year or two, as we've had people leave, we have had to just increase the wage for that specific position in order to fill the position, even though we're not raising wages for everyone, just to get someone in that position. So, thank you.
The counties we're compared with from Wagner, Irwin, Shealy are DeKalb, Du Bois, Delaware, Fayette, Hancock, Jackson, Jay, Lawrence, Madison, Noble, Randolph, Rush, Shelby, and Wayne. The only one that would be considered a donut county is Hancock. They also consider what the salaries are in Newcastle, Muncie, Greenfield, Rushville, and Shelbyville. That's where those numbers that Shannon read come from, a comparison with
So it's
comparable counties and towns near the size of Newcastle.
So it's become a priority of the council to focus on raising wages in order to be competitive, in order to be a responsible employer. We have tried to move closer to these average market wages the last 4 or 5 years without raising taxes. And we have not been able to do that because of wage inflation. Those average market wages continue to increase. And even though we have focused on our sheriff's department, even more than other departments, to try to narrow that gap, here we are 4 years later, still 23% below average market for like counties. And it's become very difficult for them to retain deputies and 30% below for our EMS employees. So there is, at this point, we feel like the only way to move up to closer to average market is to raise taxes to do that.
I guess I would also add that if you consider those comparisons and some of the discussion we've had today about wages, we do know and understand that we are on the lower end of the comparisons, and many times in many of our salary comparisons in working with Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, our employees are the bottom of the scale. They are the ones that are making the lowest wage completely, totally out of all of the comparables. And that has been troublesome in trying to get us to where we need to be. That being said, we need to look at it, what's the right wage. This council will have to make some decisions as to exactly what it is. Can we pay midpoint? I don't know that we can. We are a smaller county with less funding and less abilities, I guess. We don't need to lead the pack. Can we trail the pack? Yeah, I think we can, but by how much is to be determined. So that's a discussion for another date coming up soon with our budget.
And we'll also be talking then about a plan for the future, because since I started in office, there has never been a plan for a fixed percentage increase for employees. We don't budget a 2% raise, 3% raise. When I came into office, it had been a long time since people had raises. We give them a $500 bonus. Maybe the next year we do 3%. We've done more raises than our predecessors did by far, but never have we said, we're going to build it into our budget that our employees need cost of living increases, and actually budgeted and planned for the future, which is one of the reasons we sit here tonight, because we've come to a point where we need to come closer to market and we need to plan in order to sustain that for the future.
When Susan and I came on this board in 2019, we had a federal, not a state lawsuit for our county jail as being unconstitutionally overcrowded and inadequate. We had to pass a 0.2 jail tax in 2020 in order to do what was necessary and legally appropriate. Our former jail, I visited, I wouldn't want any family member ever to have been housed, and I'm not for putting cushy for criminals, but it was terrible. We have one of the nicer jails that came in on budget, on time, unheard of. Another county, I think Whitley, is looking at the same blueprint of the jail that we built, cost us $25 million. Last year, the quote for the exact same jail was over 33 million, 3 years later. Construction cost, as you know, has just gone out of sight. Labor, supplies, if you can get them. This was right after COVID. The fact it was built on time with the supply chain being disrupted was incredible. And we have one of the nicer jails in the state. It's not a Taj Mahal, but it's one that if a loved one had to be incarcerated, I wouldn't mind them being in our jail now with the correction officers we have that are properly trained. Last year, we passed a 0.1% PSAP. If we had not, for 911, our 911 would be insolvent by next year. It was heading quickly into the red. Our former director, Butch Baker, warned us several years prior that it was heading quickly into the red. It would have been this year if we hadn't passed that. So the two taxes we passed in the past, I felt were not optional. The two that we just passed, probably, if we're going to whittle away at the substandard pay of our employees, was probably necessary. On the public safety one coming up, I have issues with the amount that's probably going to be suggested. I think given everything, it could be less than what's going to be recommended. I may be the only no vote in what's going to be recommended. I appreciate the hard work that Shannon has done with the fire departments. I am not against any fire department, but I am opposed to doing the maximum so that we tear the Band-Aid off now and do the maximum so we don't have to raise it again in 2 or 3 years. Through it all, we're still number 76 out of 92 counties on our median household income. Right now, we are smack in the middle, number 46 of 92 counties with the amount of taxes we have in local income taxes already passed before tonight. We're at the 50 percentile, but we're in the 20 percentile lowest as far as median household income of our citizens. As my vote on the EMS, I'm going to vote for what I believe is absolutely the minimum necessary to provide proper services and proper raises.
Can I add one thing before we jump into our 5:30? I would like to say that I think we have a tradition of doing the absolute minimum that we have to do to get by. And we have that where we are today is a result of doing exactly that. And that's why I am in favor of doing what's necessary to carry us into the future. With that, as I said earlier, the state has given us an opportunity to try to keep our our residents' paychecks the same. They're going to reduce the state income tax, and they've given us the option to raise the local income tax. If you look at page 2 of the document that was up at the podium, so the backside of the front page, our average individual income and our average household income are listed there, and the decrease on a bi-weekly basis from the state is actually greater than the increase that you would see from the local income tax increase. They are reducing the income taxes. We want to increase the taxes. They are going to stop sending us the supplemental lit. If it does not come any longer, we cannot use it and count on it. Increasing the local income taxes in whatever amounts we do, the judicial lit that we just did, the EMS lit that we just did, and now the public safety lit, gives us the ability to have the dollars to do what's necessary for our employees and for the residents of this county, and not do the bare minimum we had to get by.
And that's the flip side of the coin.
I think there's one other point to note is when we discuss these increases tonight, one of the biggest complaints from the institution of the public safety lit that I've heard is that it didn't really make anything better. We didn't give money to the fire departments. We did not pay our sheriff's department better. We didn't. And the intent of this council and what you will see happen is if this goes through, the volunteer fire departments will get money to buy equipment that they need that's currently outdated. And our wages will increase, so our employees are paid correctly, so we can retain our public safety employees and all of our employees. So this is not a tax increase where we have misused funds, or I shouldn't say misuse, where we have not managed our funds into the future and now we're short. We're like, we have to raise taxes or else we won't be able to pay people next year, period. We have not done that. We have budgeted responsibly. We are now sitting on an appropriate amount of reserves, and we are going to now distribute money, hopefully, to fire departments that need it and pay our people close to market wage so that our department heads can hire people. So I think that that's worth saying too.
I think this is just an indication we're not going to have a unanimous vote. So that being said, it's almost 5:30. My last comment is that if we go with the maximum lit increase, it's going to cost our citizens $290 more per year than before we increased public safety lit and the lits tonight and the jail lit and the PSAP lit. I know it's broken down into bi-weekly, but out of your paycheck, you will be paying $290 more than you did a few years ago. It all adds up. The majority of our citizens are on fixed incomes. We have a higher population of retired people than most counties around us. I think all this needs to be considered. I have not said anything negative about the fire departments. I hope that we give your fire departments what they deserve, because you volunteer and there's only so many chili suppers and pancake breakfasts you can have. Nothing I've said is against any fire department. What I'm saying is there's going to be a proposal to go way high, higher than's necessary to give, I think, a 10% raise to our employees over the next 2 years and not have to go to the max, which is reasonable. We've given raises in the last 5 years twice what the previous 10 years have been. We have not done the bare minimum. Have we done enough? No. But what's being passed and considered, even not going to the maximum being proposed tonight, we can do 10% because we have a $6 million general fund balance in Henry County. We need to tap some of that. I don't know what the state's going to do. They originally said they're going to reduce it to 2.9% by 2027. This last legislative session, they said 2029. Who knows if that's going to happen and when? They seem to change their minds. That being said, we're about to call to order the second hearing, which I can guarantee you will not be a unanimous vote. And Rex, you'll call your part. I'd like to call the Newcastle County Council our part to the public hearing number 2 to consider increase in our public safety lit to order. Rex? And make sure your mic is green by just pressing a button. And when you speak, if you would, bring it close to you so people in the public can talk.
Mrs. Huffman, please take roll.
Mike Guffey, Jeff Hancock, Jerry Walden, Aaron Dickin, Mark Koger, Lynn Purdue, Rex Peckinpah.
Here.
Madam Auditor, I can report that all 7 Henry County Council elected officials are here. Anyone represented from any of the county incorporated towns, please come forward on the front.
Kenan,
Proceed if you
unless
have
these
any-
bodies, if you have to vote as an income tax council member as an entire body, so unless they've advertised and noticed to be here at a hearing, they really can't vote. They're welcome to come up here and talk during the public hearing portion of it, but it
Okay.
would not be an official vote.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know if anybody had responded outside of the Newcastle or the Henry County councils. You'll have a chance to 3 minutes a person to speak when we're done discussing. At this time, because Councilman Shannon Tome has done a tremendous amount of work, and most of the handouts has been his handiwork and research, I'm going to turn it over to him to discuss the rationale for us increasing the Henry County Public Safety lit that was first initiated at 2.5% in 2016. Shannon.
Quick correction, it was 0.25% in 2016.
Yes, thank you.
And public safety lit is a bit different than the other lits that we have discussed here this evening, in that public safety lit is at the control of the tax council. And the tax council includes the Henry County Council, the Newcastle City Council, and then there are representation available from all of the other towns that receive public safety lit. If you look at the document that I handed out, that you could have got at the podium, I'm gonna say page 10. Page 10 is the most recent report for the public safety lit distributions. And if you look at that document, I would like to just highlight that PSAP distributions, 911 came in at $1.126 million. Henry County's portion of the public safety distribution is $1.456 million. The certified shares, which is a portion of the other lits that go, are also on there. So a portion of your local income taxes are for certified shares, and those go to the general fund of the entities that you see there. So if you see the second column there says certified shares, the general fund, $5.271 million into Henry County's general fund. You can then see the townships below that. And on the following page, you will see the towns below that. And also the city of Newcastle and how much is deposited into their general funds. 2 columns over, you will see how much is in their public safety distribution. You'll notice that the towns all get a public safety distribution. The townships do not. That is one of the reasons why volunteer fire departments were given the opportunity to apply, and that is something that we will discuss later on. But the other pieces of your income taxes go to property tax relief. You can see that at the bottom of each of those pages. And then the Henry County Jail is funded to the amount of $2.252 million, which is the 0.2% income tax. So that gives you an idea of where your income tax dollars go, which entities get public safety, local income taxes, and which do not. The ones that do receive that do have a percentage share of vote of the tax council. As Joel just mentioned, I don't believe any of them advertised to be here to provide for their vote. And Joel, I'll defer to you for you to explain how the vote actually works.
Sure. The local income tax council consists of the county council, the Newcastle City Council, and all of the town councils within Henry County. Henry County has a lot of towns, so I think there are 12 or 11 other towns in addition to the city of Newcastle. Votes on the income tax council are allocated by population. Henry County is allocated the votes for people living in unincorporated areas. So based on the 2020 census, Henry County has approximately 47.47 votes, and the city of Newcastle has approximately 35 votes. So that constitutes a vast majority of what the total of the 100 would be. So that's why I think the thought was to have the 2 largest bodies vote, because certainly if both vote in favor of it, then that will be more than the 50 votes that are needed to either pass or defeat a measure.
Thank you, Joel. Page 13 of that handout is an overview of what the different lit amounts, public safety lit amount changes would do to the to Henry County's public safety distribution and the city of Newcastle's public safety distribution. You can see in the top left there, I've got a circled amount, that $563,191. That is the amount, the 0.05% that of the 2024 disbursements that would have been available to volunteer fire departments. That is the dollar amount that we have to look at as the amount that we would lose. I'm speaking right now about the county budget. So we would lose our distribution of public safety lit if this tax council awards 0.05% to every fire department in the county. So looking at that as a loss of revenue was one of the reasons why we decided to initiate increasing public safety local income tax. The other reasons we've talked about a lot here tonight, to be able to pay our people the way we need to pay them and to properly take care of the residents in Henry County from a public safety standpoint. So I know there's a lot of information there, page 14 and 15. Page 14 actually shows you what all of the distributions would be on public safety if those actual local income tax rates were, and I ran from 0.05% up to 0.2%, so you could see what the changes would be in distribution. Page 14 is if no dollars are distributed to volunteer fire departments at all. Page 15 is what those distributions would look like if the entire 0.05% is distributed to the local fire departments. The rest of the information in that packet is for your information. Some of it's based on the median income, showing you what it is, how these tax changes will impact you personally, where the dollars go, and the last couple of pages are some charts that you can look at to see if your salary is, I mean, you know, we talked about median household income and median individual income. They're all about averages. We all know nobody in this room is exactly average, so you can kind of look at that chart and get an idea of where you might be. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions as is related to the handout or anything else.
Shannon, you mentioned on one of the pages, I think 14 or 15. Hold on. One of these pages, you mentioned a 0.05% to the fire departments. There were 9 out of the 16 that actually met the July 1st deadline set by
Correct.
the state. So your figures are total figures would be if all like 17 fire departments.
16, yes.
16, does that include Newcastle?
That includes the Henry Township portion,
Okay,
yes.
16. My understanding from what you'd shared earlier was 9 met the deadline, so we possibly will only be considering the 9 by law.
We will have that discussion after this, but yes.
Okay. Then the other thing that relates to what I'm talking about with the fire departments, 0.05, any increment of 0.01 could be approved. 0.01, 0.02, 0.03, 0.04, 0.05.
Correct.
Your charts show the maximum 0.05, correct?
Which chart can,
Well, I'm looking at 15, I'm looking at 13.
Yeah, I think.
those were, yes, in total. We're talking about increases to the public safety lit. I started at 0.05, yes.
Okay.
The
so these fi-
distributions to the fire departments, though, can only go from 0.01 to 0.05.
Okay, but these charts, you use 0.05 as the placeholder.
I did. If you look at page 3, you can see what the distributions of 0.01 through 0.05 for the fire departments would be. And I would like to thank Angie at the GIS department and Jody and Casey in the assessor's office for the hard work they did identifying all of the fire departments and then assigning the assessed values of every parcel and separating them. And it was a chore, and we had to have it done by today, and they were able to get that done. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, kudos. A lot of hard work went into what you've done and other people assisting you in county government. And it's greatly appreciated. And I know 3 of us met with Rex and Mark to kind of discuss informally what your guys' thought was, so we wouldn't come into tonight totally blind. I know you have great needs as well. Questions from either council relating to, a lot of what you discussed was in the handout. Some of it, the last part was relating to the potential 0.05 for the volunteer fire departments that are well represented here. Questions, comments, because we haven't discussed anything about what percentage increase, if any. And the rationale was discussed as to why we're even considering an increase. He has charts that shows consideration from, well, I'm looking at page 15 as an example. If later on, if we were to approve a 0.05 for the volunteer fire departments, and on page 3, he shows how much monies each of those fire departments would get at 0.05. We would have to increase the public safety lid of 0.25 that it's currently by at least 0.05 to break even. Because 0.05% of that would go to the volunteer fire departments if it was voted to give that rate. Everything else above that is how much it would be if we 0.08%, 0.1, 0.13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 0.2%. The issue tonight is going to probably be what percent is going to be motioned and passed. Questions?
I'll just make a comment that, in 2016, when we passed this, we've had a great need since probably 2021, 22. Our law enforcement, our fire departments and our EMS have suffered greatly. The state of Indiana is not going to come and give us any more money, period. When we approach our legislators, we are told, have you increased your lit to the max? That's the first thing out of their mouth, period. Because they know they are not going to give us any more money. It's up to us on these councils to be good stewards and make sure our public safety is funded properly and can do their job the way they are supposed to do their job. When you call 911 and you expect them to show up, that is what they are there for, and they need to be paid properly for that. The state is not giving us any more money, period. They haven't since 2013? You know, a gentleman came up here earlier and said, you know, we're raising water rates, we're raising sewer rates. You know, your property taxes went up, they were assessed higher. Everything's going to go up. It's just the way it is when the state of Indiana is sitting on billions of dollars. It's the way it is. Sorry.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, we say this all the time internally, but the state legislature makes us the bad guys. They suck up all the money and they don't let enough trickle back down to us. So we sit in billions in reserves at a state level and they're, you know, they're handing us a loaded gun and say, well, raise the taxes. We gave you the option. It's just a reminder, the money's got to come from somewhere, but we're the bad guys.
You did say billions with a B, did you not? Okay.
It's also, sorry, Kenan, just reflective of the tax structure that the state has chosen. So our elected officials at the state level have chosen to try to reduce the tax burden on property owners. And they're shifting that tax burden to workers. And at the same time, they're decreasing their income taxes and giving opportunities for county to raise their income taxes. So they're shifting some power down to the local government, which is not a bad thing, to be controlled closer to the people. So our state legislators, they're trying to shift burden from property owners. They're trying to push some control over taxes down to the local level. So it is, you know, we could say bad state government. We could also just say this is the tax structure that our elected officials at the state level have designed, and we're operating under it right now.
You know, that would be fine if they admitted that.
I agree.
But
I agree.
I was eating dinner just a few weeks ago and there was a pile of mail sitting on the table and I started going through it. And it almost made me throw up when I came to a mailer that most everybody got from Senator Rotz. And I'm sure Representative Criswell will send some of these out, and people all over the state will send them out. But on there it said, we have done such a good job. We have cut your taxes. We have held the line. We've cut down property taxes, income tax, and all these different things. And you know, he is correct, but he and all the people in the legislature that vote that way are a bunch of phonies, because all they're doing is they're saying, we're cutting the taxes and we're putting it on the county council and the city council to add user fees and income taxes and all these things. So not a person is really having a tax bill that goes anywhere down. It goes up. It just is who is telling you it has to go up, and they're forcing us to do that. I don't like it.
I'll add one thing, and for those of you that really want to get bored to tears, go back to the June 27th meeting where Shannon put a PowerPoint up and walked through the whole thing for 34 minutes. You guys have heard me talk enough here tonight, but I did get phone calls. You want to raise taxes? You absolutely want to raise taxes. No, I don't. I want to get things taken care of. I want to take care of our people. I want our people to take care of our residents. If somebody's got a better way of how to get it done, point it out to me, because I don't want to raise taxes any more than anybody else. I want to cut whatever we can cut, and we've tried. We've cut. Are there some places that could be trimmed a little bit? Maybe. But we've cut substantially to the point where we really don't have any choice. I don't want to raise taxes any more than anybody else, but I'm at a loss for finding any other way to get the job done. So with the state decreasing the amount they're going to take, this is an opportunity for us to try and make it work.
I've been back and forth, I mean, since this came up. Thought I had my mind made up earlier, had a conversation with fire chief and, you know, looking at these numbers, thinking about my parents, and my grandparents who both have lived in Henry County forever on fixed incomes now. It's just, for me, I think it's the timing of everything, like the gentleman earlier said, you know, amidst the other increases. But I'm probably going to just repeat what's already been said. Yeah, I've been thinking about that surplus number at the state, 2.9 billion with a B, which really means I mean, it's a lot of money, but I don't think we understand how much money. They could write $100 million checks to each of the 92 counties in the state and still have a $1.98 billion surplus. And, you know, you'll see us in the grocery lines, you'll see us at the local parks, where you can talk to us about your concerns and your taxes and et cetera. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to talk to them. I mean, even here tonight, well, maybe not, about why they can't offer some sort of funding mechanism for these small communities out in the county, and the fire departments and the emergency services, which we all know are important to all of our communities.
And I would just remind everybody, we have to pay these taxes too. I don't want to give the government a single penny more than I need to, so we're not exempt from the same painful, you know, taxation.
So on a comical note, my 9-year-old said, "You're raising taxes for yourself?" He said, "That's not fair. We shouldn't have to pay it." I said, it is exactly fair, because if we didn't have to pay it too, I would care less. And we're raising 6 kids, and I care very much about these tax levels, and have just come to a point where I know that we cannot raise wages appropriately. If we do not do this tax, we cannot pass money to our volunteer fire departments if we don't, which is why I'm willing to consider this now when I haven't been the previous years that I was in office.
I agree with everything people have said, especially about our state legislature. Sitting on over 6 billion, the last I heard. Their answer was to give everybody a $340 taxpayer in the state when we're bleeding millions, and they gave us 340. I'm one of those citizens that are not going to be hurt as bad as those on fixed incomes by this.
We got to rewind about 5 minutes.
Yeah, just
because
as you're
state
blaming
representative
the
just walked.
state, a state representative walked in the room, so.
Yay, now, you want me to repeat? The state is sitting
Can
on
do it all
6
again
point
for
something
you.
billion dollars, and the 340 didn't do squat before the election to help any of us significantly. I just wish that in your flyers that go by and talking about the property taxes cap they put on, that what that did to the locals, the municipalities and the counties having to raise money just to try to offset inflation. What I was about to say, and I appreciate you being here, Corey, and I appreciate what you do, I really do. And you're very attentive to sit down and listen to your constituents. So that part is kudos. I'm probably talking about a lot of your part of your comrades up there. But at any rate, I was going to say, whatever's passed tonight's not going to hurt the Grays nearly as much as those that are on a fixed income. I'm retired, but my first paycheck when I got less than $10,000 teaching back in 1979, I put some back, even though we couldn't afford it, in savings. Thus, I'm in better position than probably the average citizen that we're going to affect here. So yeah, we're going to get the same. We can handle it, but I do think there's I'm not opposed to increasing. My whole qualm is how much. I don't think we have to make up 20% deficits in raises in 1 year. But if we do a modest one, we can do it over 2 years and get everybody up to at least 5% below the market. I'm speaking only for Henry County employees. We've given the Sheriff's Department a 30% raise over the last 4 years, cumulative. We've given the average non-sheriff 20% since Susan and I took office in 2019, almost catches up with inflation, almost. But we were so far behind before we began, we're still far behind as the Wagner-Irwin-Shealy report. A lot of what we're wanting to do is be able to pay our employees, our valued employees, someplace comparable to other counties similar to ours, according to Wagner-Irwin-Shealy. We're nowhere close. Like I said, we could do a modest, and I have calculated we could give a 10% raise over the next 2 years. We don't have to do it in 1 year. But if we do the maximum that I've heard is being proposed, we're going to try to do it all in 1 year. I agree with what your comments about the state. I agree that tax caps, we have been scrapped. Inflation has killed us. The cost of construction, supplies, the grocery store, gasoline has skyrocketed. I feel sorry for the volunteer fire departments that don't get paid anything. I'm pro fire department. I'm pro public safety, period. We all expect it. We have an emergency, we call 911. We expect them to be there, and we expect the police, the fire, the ambulances to be there. We wouldn't have a 911 if we didn't pass a tax last year. Next year, it would have been so far in the red, we'd had to do something. Fortunately, we passed it. So the discussion tonight is going to be how much. It's not going to be, do we have to do this? Because we really have to do this because of the state. No offense, Corey. Since tax caps, we have been strapped with what we can raise. The double-edged sword in Henry County, Chrysler went out, Modern Ford went out, Metaldyne went out, Allegheny went out, Dana went out. And I'm sorry, we love Boar's Head and TS Tech, and we love Draper. They haven't made up the difference of those huge employers from 20 years ago. They left, tax caps came on. We used to have a pretty good budget surplus. We used to give wages that were competitive. That has ceased in 10 or 20 years. We are 5 to 25% below other counties comparable size. We have to do something. We can't continue. We're losing good people, and people will not apply here anymore because we're nowhere close to competitive. They can drive to the donut counties and get paid 20 to 40% more. We are not competitive.
I was shocked to know that we did used to pay average market to our employees. What, do you know the date of that? Just haven't been in county government a long time. I just assumed, well, maybe we never compensated our employees well, but when we had the report done, we did. We used to pay average market, and then we came to a point with the property tax caps, we just stopped giving cost of living increases to our people, basically. And it is not a good way to take care of your employees. And you get to the point where you can't hire anyone, you're losing people, you start training people who leave. And we want to develop a workforce that is stable and compensated fairly and builds experience. That's good for the county.
Any more discussion? I move to open it up to the public.
Is there any more discussion? I just have one comment, and I will open up because I know we want to move along, and I know you have groceries too. It's our talk on the elevator on the way up. Never mind. Having been in public education since the tax caps, I averaged a 2% raise every year from 2010 to 2020. Inflation went up higher than that. But schools were strapped, municipalities were strapped, counties were strapped, public safety entities were strapped, and the state sits on $6 billion surplus. But they held your assessed valuation of 0.04% on your property taxes. Right before the election, they announced that. Corey, you want to speak? You want a rebuttal?
There's a motion on the table.
There is a motion on the table. That's my comment before the motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Good. Are you okay with that, Newcastle? Okay, so is us. We are too, apparently. It is open for public comment. 3 minutes per, please, and Betsy's keeping the time.
The reality is that our professional services don't have to go to the donut counties. All they could need to do is go to a neighboring county and hire in at $14,000 to $18,000 more than what we're paying them with a $4,000 to $5,000 sign-in bonus. It's an insult to say, let's get by with as little as we can get by. How about we tell them we appreciate it? Our fire department has always been there for the county, the townships. Every township volunteer fire department has never let us down, whether it's a tanker or they're covering our stations. Gives you goosebumps how well they work together. They deserve better. They deserve more. Gentleman asked if our first aid unit measured up with Anderson or Muncie. I don't want to laugh in anybody's face, but the question is does Anderson's or Muncie's hold a candle to ours? We're one of the only first aid units in the Midwest that carries blood. We had a lady thrown from a vehicle this past week, severe blood loss. We saved her life because we could give her blood. All of our units, all of our equipment, highest tech that there is out there. When I get a phone call from a department head from one of our chiefs, I cringe because my fear is that they're getting ready to say, oh man, we're losing so-and-so to Madison County that's opening up new fire stations right and left. So it's an insult to say to get by as little as we possibly can. Our professional services deserve it.
Thank you, Mayor. Next person? Oh, you have a comment on that? Just a second. One of our council members have a comment.
I can see exactly where emergency services people sitting there, what the heck is going on? We're not getting paid. Well, I tell you something, I know where you stand. I've been there, I've done it. You're risking your lives for the people of the county, and I give you my highest appreciation. I know what you're going through. I mean, it's just plumb ridiculous, but what do? I remember when I was on, we lost, when I was hired, we lost 4 of our deputies who'd been on the department for quite some time. They went to factories. Well, maybe I could have done that, but I was there to protect and serve, just like you guys were. And I've never seen anything like it. It's humiliating to you. It's embarrassing. And I know. I only wish that there was some way possible we could help you even more than, way by far more than we do. And that goes for all county employees. You're appreciated. Unfortunately, there's a few people out there who don't give a damn, but you are appreciated, believe me. And I just want to get my 2 cents worth in and let you know where I stood with you, all of you.
Thank you, Harold. Anybody else? Newcastle? Public. Please state your name. I knew who the mayor was and most people did, but I don't know everybody else in the audience.
Irvin Olszewski, I'm Knightstown, Wayne Township's fire chief. I want to thank Shannon and Jeff Bill for putting a lot of this together for us as far as the safety tax. But I got a thing I was going to read to you. One reason why I think you need to look at passing this. Of the total fire departments in the country, there's 29,452. 18,873 are all volunteers. And that's what most of these people in here are. The time donated by volunteer firefighters saved localities across the country an estimated $46.9 billion. So when you talk about 200, I think you say 290 or something for the year, that's just missing a McDonald's meal one time. I mean, that's not a lot. And Every one of these guys in here are hurting. Every one of these departments are hurting. I'm also the Fire Chiefs Association president. But every one of these departments in there are hurting. A lot of you guys that's in your jurisdiction know that. And sorry if I'm getting loud, but my hearing aid's messing up. But I think it's something you really need to look at, because it's going to be, the longer you put it off, the more you're going to have to do later. And we're finding that out in Knightstown. If you don't supply now, next time it comes up, or you need to do something for the mayor or their employees, you're going to have to spend more money. So each time it's going to increase. And that's what hurt us in Knightstown in the past, just a little FYI. And I know you guys, Bobby's our person over there. I'm not sure who else is. But it's the first time I met most of you. And I've met Gannon in one of our meetings before. But something you need to look at, because if it's not for us showing up at your house, whether it's medical, and we work with Henry County medics every time, all the time. We average almost 640 runs a year, and we use them every time. They're our transporting service, and we love them. So if they're not there, who are we going to use? And it's the same thing for the fire departments. If they can't get help with money because their apparatus is falling apart or anything like that, they're not going to be able to show up. So the really difference between us and Newcastle, I love Newcastle, I love Chief Moore, but the difference between us and them, is a paycheck. We have to do the same training they do, same paperwork they do, the same state documents. We have to do the same thing they do. We have to show so much training, and we have to renew our EMTs. Knightstown has 9 EMTs on our department. We just got another one. I'm not trying to go on and on. I'm trying to time 3 minutes.
Still within your 3 minutes. Go for it.
But,
Is that it? I went.
oh, she's time,
Oh,
but
dude, somebody's phone went off. No.
every one of these departments needs your help. Okay? Even Knightstown needs your help. And because if we're not there, who are we going to call? We're going to call Newcastle to come all the way down there, or all the way out to Louisville or Strawn or Liberty Township. Their EMS goes, but we can't pull their fire trucks out. So I will tell you, one thing we're looking at, if it goes through, is trying to get part-time stuff Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, to help with response time. But I appreciate every one of these guys behind me. You guys need to appreciate them too, as best you can. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I assure you, every person up here in Newcastle and Henry County elected officials appreciate very much. And when I say minimum, I wasn't talking about what's going to be for the fire departments coming up. But go ahead, sir. Identify yourself if you would, please.
I'm Ben Madison, Chief of Greensboro Fire Department. My numbers aren't anywhere near as big as the numbers you're talking. We have a $9,000 a year budget. We get $9,000 a year. I pay over $5,000 in insurance. That tells you where we're at. I have 3 firefighters right now that are using gear from the 90s. I have hose that hasn't been purchased since the 90s. So anything we do, we do fundraisers, pancake breakfast and golf outing, those kind of things. But none of us really got into business to be a professional fundraiser. But we do it. It's tough to get people to show up for those things. But just any consideration you could would be great. I don't know. I'm sure the rest of the guys are struggling as much as we are. But, you save some money. You hope you can buy some gear. But you got to keep that reserve. You guys have a reserve just in case, because transmission goes out of a truck. What do we do now? So just anything you could do to help us would be greatly appreciated. And I know it's been mentioned a couple of times about people on fixed incomes and the population of our county being older. They're the ones that rely on us the most. So I'm not saying that they should I'm not saying they should pay more. I'm just saying that that's typically who needs us the most. So if you could do whatever you can to help us, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. we're getting a line. Yes, sir. Please identify yourself.
Heath Hudnut, Fire Chief of Jefferson Township in Sulphur Springs. What's proposed on this sheet of a total of $563,000 will not buy one fire truck. Some of us in the fire departments here tonight have 30+ years of volunteering. We've struggled for 30+ years trying to do pancake breakfast where we'll make $500, maybe $1,000. We need help, and as much as we can. I know at Jefferson Township, I've got trucks 23, 24 years old. I've talked to FEMA, I've talked to the federal. They're not helping us. We just need help. Like the mayor said, we train with Newcastle. We back up Newcastle. They come help us. If we're not having the equipment and the manpower, then Newcastle is going to suffer also. You know, I know you're talking about the elderly and their fixed incomes. This tax also affects us personally. So this is like us paying for our own way. We're standing up here asking for this money because it's coming out of our pockets too. So, and one of our biggest areas is the elderly. And when they call 911 because they can't get in their house or they fell down, the volunteers are the ones goes out, picks them up, helps them in the house, helps them whenever they need. Storms roll through, we're out there cleaning roads, cleaning streets, all on our own time. But it still takes equipment, it takes time. So I would ask that we get the .05.
Can I ask
Thank
the
you.
gentleman from Sulphur Springs, Jefferson Township said, I think he said $9,000 budget.
That was Greensboro. That was Greensboro.
Greensboro, okay. You're from Jefferson Township. Can you tell me what you get as far as a budget that work on annually, aside from the chili suppers and the pancake? What do you actually get from the township?
Roughly $25,000,
Okay.
but that's tax, or not tax, that is insurance, that's utilities, that's gasoline.
So a
our-
fire truck's out of the question.
Fire trucks out of the question. If we were to get the .05, I could possibly replace one of my trucks with another used truck. But what kind of problems am I getting with a used truck?
I know your time's up, but if we were to pass a .05, you would get $33,000 next year, which would be over the amount that you currently have been operating on,
Yes,
above the 25,000.
yes.
And it sounds like that would surely help you out greatly.
$29,340 is the estimate.
Oh, yes, sorry,
What?
wrong line.
What am I looking at?
Page 3 of the handout, Kenny.
Okay. Another handout. I stand corrected. I've got too many handouts and I'm looking at the wrong one, but at any rate, it would help you.
Ours would be $29,340.
Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's based on 2024 receipts. So the actual number would be based on 2025 receipts to be determined, but this was a good estimate as we could get.
I know my time's up, but would we have to resubmit for this every year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm on the right spreadsheet. I know who you are, we know who you are, but you might want to identify yourself because some of the audience may not, Chad.
So I'm Chad Malakote. First off, I appreciate all you guys. I've set up there and I understand how hard this is. I was the guy that crunched all the numbers with the jail lit like Shannon did
You're
with
ready to
these.
get it back?
Well, we'll see. Likely next year, the way it looks, but yes, I mean, so, first off, I absolutely appreciate every single one of these people back here that do this job. Just not just the volunteers, but the paid folks as well, because I've sit there, I've worked with them. I've worked with our county employees. I've worked with Bobby and all these departments around and see how hard they work. So I absolutely believe they need raises. We are way below market value. Here's my concern. I ran the numbers based on Shannon's spreadsheet. If you went full market value and took care of everything else you've mentioned here tonight at the 0.14%, that gets you everything, full market value. And I apologize to the city. I don't have your numbers, so I can only speak to the county's budget. That gets you everything you want. The proposed rate is 0.6 above that. So what's going to happen to the $700,000 that the county is going to bring in additional revenue? And why do we need that when the county is sitting on the largest reserve this county has ever had? I will also mention the 50% number that Ken and you have said, I never heard as a council member. It was 25 to 30% was what Baker, if we have a 50% drop in our revenue, we got a whole lot bigger problems than we're ever going to be able to fix.
Be called Armageddon.
Yes, exactly. The end of this county. I mean, so that the likelihood that we would have a 50% drop in revenue in 1 year would literally be Armageddon to happen. So that is my concern. I totally agree that these folks deserve the 5%. I think this was a long time coming. I stood up here years ago and looked right at council members when they passed this thing the first time and said this was all smoke and mirrors accounting. You were going to take from here, shove to there, and there would be zero safety enhancements. And what came about? Exactly what I said.
Better now than it was when you started.
It is, absolutely. But our reserves are also way better. I'm not sure where the 1% come. I remember we were $750,000 in the red.
Yeah, it's from some state form I looked at.
Yeah, I think that form is wrong because I got told that we had to come up with $750,000 in the first 6 months or we were in trouble. We were going to the state was coming in.
Yeah.
So
Jason mentioned we were basically operating on fumes.
yeah, we were gone. So
Pages.
that is my concern. I think Ken and you kind of share that concern based on your comments that I just want to know, okay, you guys have more money in the bank than you've ever had and you want to take $700,000 more from these people. Why? That's my question.
So Chad and I have had this conversation privately, but we'll have it publicly too. And I've done the numbers and our numbers are not obviously the same, but we cannot sustain the raises with cost of living increases beyond 2 years before we will start eating into our reserves. And that is holding constant our liability insurance. And that is not paying higher insurance deductibles. That is possibly not included the increased matrix, increased longevity that we passed. So we just don't agree on the numbers the same way, and that's okay. But in talking with the treasurer, and we are sitting on reserves because of interest income right now, and it is wonderful. In 2022, we were getting 0.25% return on our money that we had in the bank, and now we're getting 5.5. Is that what you? 5.25. And that's where these reserves have come from. And I hope that we keep a healthy reserve, and I hope that we make good choices with this excess. But if interest rates come down, and I made the suggestions that you did, and I had Baker Tilly run a report. What if we get $900,000 a year in interest? When Bill is saying we could easily go back down to $200,000 a year in interest. And what if we get some supplemental lit for a few years? And it's just not sustainable long-term without eating into our reserves. So we could just eat into our reserves for a few years, but then those reserves are gone and we may have to start again, and we wouldn't have money for any type of capital improvements. So but Chad knows how much I respect his opinion, and I've listened to everything that he has told me, and I have run those numbers, and I appreciate you, Chad. I'm looking forward to when you're sitting back up here, because I know you'll make sure that any taxes we put in place are used well. So thank you, Chad.
I would just defer to everybody that the handout that you picked up on the podium, page 7 and 8, refer to the county reserves, 7, 8, and 9. If you would like some additional explanation of where some of that stuff came from, it talks about the supplemental lit. It talks about dollars that were put into the general fund from the ARP funding and also the interest income that has been put in there. Those are the 3 primary reasons why we're sitting on the reserves that we have. Had we not had ARP money, had we not been given supplemental lit from the state and interest rates hadn't gone up so that we earned interest income on our investments, we wouldn't be too far off from that 1% that Ken was talking. We'd be better than that. I shouldn't say that. It wouldn't be 1%, but it might be between 5 and 10. Okay, well,
And I will say,
There's
Chad,
a
that
lot.
when I was looking at numbers, I was not looking at a 0.2. So we may not be as far off as what it looks like. So
We had I think, we 3 spoke a little bit. I think one question in a text thread you 2 and I had yesterday, was the monies from ARP, was it put in savings? I mean, was it getting interest or is it allowable to? I don't remember years ago when that came out. Could we invest it?
the new monies, he's talking about.
4.9. Right. Right, but some of the monies over the last 3 years have been invested or been put in interest. None has.
only the amount that was allocated to the general fund, right? Only the ARP amount that was allocated to the general fund.
Well. Right, and it's. Okay. Well, and I agree,
Are we still in the public comment section of
yes,
this?
Yes,
Doesn't
we
seem
are.
like we're getting much public
we
comment.
kind of did because Chad generated some rebuttal from council members. I have one question while we're rebutting. No one knows what the interest rates are going to do, but the feds are not talking about reducing those. I just wanted to say kudos for the job you've done by putting a lot of money in, and you actually have people bid on higher rates. You've accumulated a lot of money as our county treasurer by being wise in that area, and we thank you. We okay for public comment to continue? Thank you. Kyle's the one that keeps me on track, usually up here, so thanks, Rex. Next. I know Ed too, but you might want to identify yourselves to the few who don't.
Ed Yannis, farmer from down in Dudley Township, former commissioner. And I guess I would say that during my 8 years as commissioner, we didn't have the luxury of having a $6 million reserves. We had a bond for everything we wanted to do. And yet we've sat here and we've picked on Corey, who took off now, for having the state budget surplus of billions. And yet we've got 6 million here. What's wrong with trying to work that down a little bit? I don't think anybody in this room begrudges the fire departments the extra assistance, because when my house catches on fire, I want somebody there to do it, and we're asking them to do a lot with very little. But we're also asking a lot of senior citizens here to increase their tax burden, and a lot of people can't afford that. And being an older folk now, my tax take is pretty high already, and I don't want to see it go up any more than it has to. So let's draw the line somewhere between that maximum and burn up a little bit of the 6 million, please.
It's the general fund balance, which I believe is about 35% that they ask the experts we get from Baker Tilly, and there's another gentleman at the conferences we go to the Association of Indiana Counties. They say you need 6 months reserve in case the bottom dropped out near Armageddon or whatever. Right now, we have about 4 months. When we, no.
Well,
Yeah, it's in reserves. It's
It's a
unappropriated.
general fund balance.
I have one response to Mr. Yanis that I agree, and Shannon and I have had this conversation so many times. I don't need us to have more. But it's hard, and I think Shannon agrees, it's just hard to predict. We know a lot more about what our expenses are than our revenue stream. How quickly will interest rates drop? How quickly will the state stop sending the supplemental lit? So I just wanted to put that out there too, that I don't think it's the goal of the council to continue to grow that. It's just hard to plan for the future when we're not sure about those revenue streams.
Absolutely. And this is what we pay Baker Tilly to help us with, to know what kind of money we have in reserve.
Currently, we have about a 35%, which was zero when we took office in 2019. We have built it up, but we're told to have a 50% is ideal. We may never get there. The longevity increases and the matrix increase and the 5% raise we gave last year, which is the highest in 20 years that we've given, it is eating into that. We would have had over 40% if we hadn't given that raise last year. So we are eating into that. We probably won't see it increase, but we're not where the financial advisors advise us to be. I don't know who was next. Corey, were you up there first? We want you to rebut before you leave. You've taken a lot of heat. We want you to defend yourself. Please identify yourself.
My name is Brandy Pierce. I'm with the Henry County Sheriff's Department. If this tax is passed today, I hope the money will be used to invest in the employees of Henry County that are providing the services the tax was created for. Just a few years ago, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, myself and members of my department and other emergency services came to work every day without hesitation to continue providing the safety services to the members of the community. Other employees from both the county and private organizations were allowed to stay home for their safety and the safety of their family members, and this was not an option for us. And we accepted this because that is part of our role. If this tax is being put in place to relieve the general fund and not allow us to pay our public safety employees a wage competitive in the local job market, then this increase will only further put us behind in keeping our experienced employees and retaining new employees, which we invest large amounts of both money, time, and resources in. When this tax was originally passed, everyone within the public safety services was excited to see that money available to keep and retain employees. This would have built the foundation for improving and modernizing public safety for everyone within the county, but the reality is it was used to relieve the general fund without increased public safety services. As somebody who has been in the public safety community, I worked for the city for 23 and a half years, and I've got a little over a year on the county, which has allowed me to work a lot more with the volunteer firefighters. I've, of course, worked a lot with Newcastle Fire Department, also the small town marshals, law enforcement services, tons with the medics. As somebody who has had the medics treat me when I was shot in the line of duty, I've had firefighters be my only backup in a fight because there were no law enforcement officers available to back me up at the time. So 2 guys in a fire truck rolled up and helped me. One day last week, 2 house fires, large, fully engulfed house fires in opposite corners of the county, and I watched multiple volunteer fire departments rush to the scene in excellent time, and we did what we could to assist them, but we are losing young guys. The city is losing young guys, the fire department, the medics. If we don't pay to keep them, we will not have anybody. And the fire department, the medics, the volunteer fire departments, the sheriff's department, we are the only ones to respond to those calls. If we're not there, there is no one else to take those. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Perfect timing too. Only one quick comment. I personally have been transported 3 times by an ambulance. Probably 2 of those times saved my life. had the Newcastle Fire Department put out a fire. I've had a deputy, reserve deputy. Somebody was really going after me, threatening online, paid a visit to a person in the county that was doing that online. I've used all of them, and I so appreciate all of those services. I've had to call 911 before too. Go ahead, Josh. You might identify yourselves for the two people that don't know you.
Josh Smith, Chief Deputy, Henry County Sheriff's Office. I appreciate the comments about our volunteer firefighters and EMS. They are, we're losing them. We're losing numbers, and I think most of you know that, our volunteers. We don't have the amount of volunteers we did several years ago, and I'm afraid if the trend continues, we're all going to find out what that does. So we need to take care of what we got while we have them. There is no greater issue facing our county government body than that of fair pay for our county employees. As our sheriff said earlier today, he said our people are our most valuable asset. The majority of the county employees are paid below the average market. Among our law enforcement and correctional staff, we see some of the largest gaps between what we're actually paid and what the market average is. The Sheriff's Office administration projects that our correctional staff, to include those with and without rank, are anywhere from $7,000 to $11,000 below the market average. We also project that our deputies within the law enforcement division that have no rank at all are between $10,000 and $11,000 below market average, just average. Sergeants, as we go up in rank, we see this increase. Sergeants are in the neighborhood of $14,000 below market average. Our captains, $20,000 below market average. And my position as second in command at the Sheriff's Office is between $22,000 and $23,000 below the market average. As an administrator, I'm very concerned that we are on the verge of losing both our most senior leadership staff and those that we've hired in the last 3 to 4 years. When we sacrifice experience, training, leadership, we also compromise public safety. We've made great strides in professionalism and accountability throughout both the jail and the Sheriff's Office because we've asked our staff to do more. Our staff and our citizens deserve the best. Whether we like it or not, we must pay our deputies what they're worth or lose our best to other agencies. Today, the council has opportunity to change all of that. Let's stop fighting this battle every single year. It's every year we fight this battle. We don't have to do it. Do not push this off on next year's council. We're going to have 3 new members. Let's get this done now. Let's fix the most pressing issue in our county government by increasing the public safety lit and paying our employees the average market pay as established by WIS. Let's take care of the county's most valuable asset, their people. I do not support a public safety lit increase that does not resolve the most pressing issue to pay our public safety officers, our deputies, the market value established by WIS, just the average. This must be a yearly commitment on behalf of the county council. Thank you all for what you do. I know it's a lot.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. And I don't think you're going to get much disagreement with what either one of you said. Yes, sir. If you please identify yourself.
My name's Colt Overby. I'm with Strong Volunteer Fire Department. Strong last year took 311 runs on a $9,000 budget.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit more, please?
Apologize. Strong took 311 runs on a $9,000 budget last year. I-70 runs through our territory, not just ours. Everyone here, first off, is strapped for cash. So I'm not just saying it's just us. It's the whole county. But I-70 runs through our area. 40 runs right through Strawn. We have Dublin and Wayne County that calls for mutual aid from us. Bentonville, they haven't called many times, but we train with them and we see what they have in a town. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Bentonville, but a town that's tiny, and they have equipment similar to Knightstown. I don't know if you guys know how much equipment costs, but to the gentleman sitting here in front of me, you mentioned your grandparents have lived in Henry County. And yeah, everyone's right. The generations are getting, people are getting older as generations go on. Strawn, off that $9,000 budget, can't even afford what's called a Lucas device. It's refurbished. It's a CPR device. You brought up that all these factories are going. That's true. That means all your shift workers are leaving. So yeah, we have an issue with membership, but we also have an issue with people showing up, not because they don't want to, but because they can't, because they're at work. We don't have shift work anymore. We don't have small farms anymore. So at 2 a.m, when everyone's sleeping because they work during the day, or when everyone's at work, you may have one guy show up to a cardiac arrest. That one man can't be expected to do CPR, because anyone that's done CPR knows it's work. It's hard work to do proper CPR to ensure that person has a chance of survival. You can't do proper CPR. You can't provide proper breaths. You can't call 911. You can't get prepared for our great EMTs and paramedics, by the way, which we do have some of the greatest around. I work in multiple counties in the volunteer and professional service, so I do know that every county or every department in this county needs help. I want to be able to afford a device that's used and been refurbished, but I can't. We need help on the greatest level. I mean, it may be me, maybe you, maybe any of these people that need help. And just because you live in Knightstown don't mean you don't come through Strawn, don't go through Kennard. Every single place needs help. So I'm just asking that you guys pass the maximum, because I have to pay it. So that way I can at least forward one Lucas device and give someone the best chance of survival, because we take 80 to 85% of our runs are EMS. So it's not just fire. We do EMS runs also. And when we're out in the county, the ambulance may be 25 minutes away. So I'm asking for anything, but preferably the maximum would help us tremendously, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So the 7,000 you would get if we passed the 0.05 would be very beneficial to the Strawn department.
It would be absolutely beneficial.
He told me I can say one more thing before you come up. He made me think of it, and he made me think of it. NFPA says, once your apparatus hits 20 years, you need to replace it. And I'll tell you, we have two. We have an 85 and a 90 engine. We got grants we've been trying to get a grant for 10 years, but we haven't made the threshold yet. So I know most of these people back here got engines that's older than 20 years. And the NFPA says we must replace them once they hit 20 years. And that's Greenfield, I think, or Brownsburg, one of my boys worked, they just paid $900,000 for a new engine. And if you get a grant, it has to be new. You can't get a used one. But that's not what we're talking about here. But every one of these guys need help with money to get new equipment. Thanks, Corey.
Corey, you want to go last, huh? You two.
I'll go.
Arm wrestle, flip a coin.
No, it's all good.
Please identify yourself, Corey Criswell.
So I'm Corey Criswell. I'm everyone in here, state representative, and I thank you for that. And I appreciate all your guys' service to the county as well. I've lived here my entire life, besides 3 short years stint once I graduated, and know many of you sitting up here today, and just know that you're a phone call away. Anything you guys have in mind or see coming, I've always have an open door, and I think a lot of you see that. I'm just going to hit on a couple of things. I kind of walked in late. I had meetings in southern Indiana, down near Odin, Indiana today. So took me about 2 hours and 40 minutes, because 465 was
closed, so apologize for being a little behind, but I walked into a little firing range here, so I kind of had to get my thoughts together quickly. I think most of these public service, they know I'm 100% behind public service. My father was in public service for many years. And so I'm 100% know they need to be substantially paid more, given more things, money, when it all comes down to it. And I'm agreeing to that, but I want to get to some of the things that was said when I walked in. $6 billion surplus was correct in 2021. Last year in 2023, it was 2.9 billion. Then a lot of you seen on the news that Medicaid, we had a shortfall because there was a few people that didn't do their job correctly, which most times if we don't do our job correctly, we usually get fired. Okay, so they had $1 billion shortfall, so that makes 1.9 billion because we had to adequate for that for coming up. And then we'll see what the December forecast for this next budget session comes in on where we stand. We think we're going to be below that. And I think many of you in here, I know I always want to function on a little reserve. I never want to be in the red. So I think you guys can all, just like the county sitting on a reserve, I respect that and understand that if something falls out or you have something you need to pay out, that we need to have the money to do that. I think we all can agree that. So taking bullets that were $6 million surplus, when it's not 100% true, we can backfire that. Now, I think the state obviously needs more than the $6 million surplus we have 92 counties and a lot of things, departments, so on, that we pay for and take care of. So does the counties need more? I would agree that I'm small local government. I'm for as local as you can get control of certain things. And if I personally, I'm one of 150 that makes that decision, could give you more, I would. But we got to get that through to over half of both sides and the governor, and we can take care of that. So the surplus things, I think we all can agree on. It's good to be in a surplus and not in the negative. Let's see what. Like I said, when I started, 100% behind public safety. But as a lot of these folks in here that probably aren't for raising taxes, they just got their property tax in the mail, as we all did. And it was a major increase, like we all saw. This is a question, does the county even know how much money that's going to bring in extra? Is it going to bring in any extra? So if we look at that, I ask if we pass this today, because I'm all for public safety getting paid their net worth, volunteer fire department's budget to go up. I'm 100% behind all that for public safety, but all I want to ask is if this happens and say 2 years down the road, we're bringing in and have way more than $6 million sit in the bank, say it goes to 10, 12, and so on. We look at these taxes and then we start cutting them back. So if that comes into fruition, I'll be the first to be up here asking if we can take that back and if it doesn't, if it stays the same, then obviously it's needed. They need to get paid what they're worth. They don't get paid enough, in my opinion. They put their lives on the line every day. I respect everybody from Newcastle Police, Sheriff's Department, EMS, Volunteer Fire Department, Newcastle Fire. I respect all those guys and around the state. I respect the state troopers, etc. So I just want to make that clear. If you guys have any questions for me, just know one phone call away. Anything you have or need, please reach out anytime.
Thank you, Corey. I will say you're extremely approachable. I know we've met and other council members, probably Newcastle has too, have met with you and you've always been open to doing that. And thanks for the correction of the 2.9. That sounds like a more reasonable surplus.
Yep.
Which is probably something else is going to come up, just like our $6 million. Something always comes up that we don't expect out of the budget. Or something critical falls apart and we have to go into that. So, for a politician, that was a pretty good rebuttal.
We try.
Actually, I think everybody here appreciates what you do, and you're under the fire a lot too. So
Yeah, no
appreciate it.
problem.
I'll address your question from my standpoint only. If we can see those reserves come in, I mean, we thought we were gonna have property tax dollars come in and then the state passed the growth quotient change. And we didn't get the dollars we thought we were gonna get by the assessed value. Every one of us pays property taxes too. If that starts to come in and our revenues are come in, my answer is hell yes, we'll reduce taxes.
Okay.
We don't want to overtax anybody.
Good deal.
I would love it if we could.
Yep.
That's an unknown that we don't know and
Yeah.
I'll simply say we have about 35 witnesses to you coming back and telling us you need to pull back on your taxes because it's a rarity that any taxes anywhere, any level is reduced.
I agree.
In fact,
I'm just
you
saying,
find
if
too
we
many
see them,
cases
if
in the
we see
books.
our reserves if we see our reserves going up, that we look at what we're gonna pass here in a few minutes, hour, or whatever we got, and we'll look at it in the future.
And the other piece of the answer to your question is the projected increase in property taxes is included in our report from our financial advisor. So we are considering it, and I completely agree. If our reserves continue to grow, we are overtaxing, so.
And Corey, if you can get us an extra million or two, I'll take that label of phony off of all you guys in Indianapolis.
Sheriff, again, most of us know you, but if you please identify yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm John Sproles, the Sheriff of Henry County. I want you all to know I'm here advocating for all public safety officials. I work with all of these guys. Somebody mentioned giving blood the other day on a very tragic accident scene. It saved the lady's life. I was on scene there, and I just want you all to know that I'm here advocating for all of you all. The chairman made a statement earlier about the sheriff's department has, the officers been given a 30% pay increase over the last 4 years. 4 years ago, their starting pay was $41,553, and today it's $49,668. That equals a 19.5 actual percent increase over 4 years, and we appreciate the 19.5%. So I am going to read a statement. I usually don't do this just for time's sake. I'm going to read my statement. I wanted our sergeant to bring this vest. As she mentioned earlier, she'd been shot in the line of duty. This also here, if anybody wants to talk to her afterwards and look at this, it's a .45 caliber bullet that was lodged right here in the center of her vest. And I can quickly count 7 shootings that we've had right here in our little hometown, our county, in just the last few years. So I just want everybody to know that law enforcement, public safety officials, we do have a high risk job. And when we get in the vehicles and get the vest on every day, we're taking that risk of what exactly happened to her. Thank God that the bullet was here and not 9 inches higher, or she wouldn't be here today. So I just want us to understand that our job is dangerous. In 2016, our county government realized our law enforcement officers were severely underpaid. They knew something had to be done about it. They proposed a public safety local income tax, better known as a public safety lit tax. This lit tax was sold to the citizens to be the vehicle in which our local government would be able to adequately and fairly pay our law enforcement officers and be able to provide them with the proper up-to-date equipment they need to effectively do the job of keeping the citizens of Henry County safe. The citizens agreed it was a priority to them to fairly pay the men and women who put the uniform on each day and risk their lives to keep them and their loved ones safe. Risk their lives is not an understatement, as we see right here. Just ask the many of our local law enforcement men and women who have either been beaten, stabbed, shot at, and or involved in having to take someone's life in order to protect our citizens. Like I said, I can quickly count 7 in the recent few years. Our citizens rallied to support our local law enforcement officers and began to pay the public safety lit tax in order to fairly pay and properly equip our local law enforcement officers. How do we know what fair pay is? Our county has chose to pay a company called WIS for more than 20 years to collect data from similar counties and similar law enforcement departments such as ours in order to be able to actually factually determine what the average fair pay is for our officers. In 2016, nearly 100 non-public safety county officials were paid closer to average fair pay than our officers were. In today, nearly 200 non-public safety county employees are paid closer to fair market pay than our officers. That is after the citizens have paid millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in taxes. That was supposed to fix this issue. I am on board with raising the tax only if we have a standing commitment from this council to immediately fix the law enforcement fair pay gap and pay each year moving forward a minimum of at least the average fair pay as established by WIS or another comparable third-party firm. I want to say this council has done a good job of trying to do well with what we have. And I don't even know if they could answer what happened way back then. It was not them that was involved, but this council can fix that problem. And if we pass this tax, let's pay our officers deserve at least average fair pay, not 10% below average, not 5% below average, not 1% below average. They deserve a minimum of average pay. All of these public safety officials do because they are the ones putting the vest on each day to protect all of us here. We have got to fix this. We can fix this. Last statement, the mayor said earlier, I dread that phone call. I got that phone call just a couple of days ago. The chief from Whitestown said, hey, just checking on one of your officers, looking at hiring him. They hired him. We brought him on new 3 years ago. We just paid $20,000 to equip him with the K9. And he will be leaving in about 2 weeks he currently makes $49,668. He's going to roll up there and in 2 weeks, he will be starting to make $77,000 and change. $77,000 and change. We just paid $20,000 for a dog. What do we do with that dog? We going to hand him to another trainer? No. We're going to do the best we can to sell the dog for the best number we can get to Whitestown. This is a critical issue. It has to be fixed. This is a public safety tax. Let's put the money where it is supposed to go. Thank you.
I'd like to comment, and I appreciate the comments, Sheriff, and
Thank you.
I was not an elected official in 2016, but I was a citizen appointment on Job Classification and Salary Committee, and so was Chad Malakote. And the differentials of pay and the analysis and all of the items that are on this document that I'll make sure you have from Wagner and Shealy. It is just an estimate, but that report will be coming on August 5th from Addie. We recommended to do this in 2016, to take the decades-old job classifications and point system and assign them properly. To get this report right here breaks out all of the police officers and law enforcement, public safety and law enforcement. All the polls are broken into 4 separate categories on this. And that is one of the reasons why things have been held up the way they have. And the county government did not do that report in 2016 because it cost $40,000 to do that report, and we didn't have $40,000, which was the exact reason why when I was asked to be reappointed to the Job Classification Committee, I said, thank you, but 1 year was good enough. This will help tremendously. I just want to address your average wage. Averages are exactly that. Average. Nobody's average. People are going to be above average. People are going to be below average. I think we have to assess as a county where we want to pay all employees that is sustainable for the revenue streams that our people can afford. that's a discussion for another day, but I really appreciate these sentiments and I think that I can speak for how we ended up where we are and even in 2016, and we are working diligently to try to fix it.
One thing, talking about the averages, when you need the law enforcement, I don't plan to send a below average law enforcement officer to your house. I don't think that we have below average law enforcement officers. And
No, not talking about
working with
performance.
these people, I don't think these people are below average either because I work with them on a daily basis. I want to reiterate though, you guys have done a great job. You're working hard. Shannon, I know you've put an enormous amount of hours in. However, you make 9,000 a year, so.
Worth every penny.
Hey, you
Thanks.
know, but I appreciate your efforts on these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate it. And my 30% was based on the 2019 that you got in 20. It was a 5-year. And it was an average. I went back and looked. Go ahead. Who said Kennan? Rex?
I gotta get this little green thing going here. Sheriff Sproles, I wholeheartedly agree. You guys need to make more money. You're, not necessarily you, but your officers do. I'm not involved in that decision-making process. But I am a citizen of Henry County. And when I talk to people outside our county and I talk about the safety of Henry County, I talk about the sheriff's department, I talk about our police department, I talk about our fire department, our EMS, and the fact that we have the volunteer fire departments. I know a few places that somebody can live and be any safer. Certainly bad things can happen anywhere, but we're pretty safe in Henry County, thanks to all of the people here. I grew up in Liberty Township. My dad was with the Millville Volunteer Fire Department. I realized that volunteer fire departments certainly are a safety factor, but they're more than that to a community. I mean, a volunteer fire department is not just a safety organization, it's a community organization that pulls people together, that helps people in more ways than just putting out a fire, you know, and I'm deeply appreciative of that. And I definitely will be for getting that higher number of percentage out to the volunteer fire departments. And in Newcastle, when we passed Lowit back, whenever it was, 2016, we made a commitment that we were going to use that money for what was intended to be used for. And we have used it for salaries for our police, fire, and EMS. We've used it for police vehicles, fire vehicles, ambulances, equipment, you know, and we've tried to judiciously use that money for what it was intended. And if we increase that amount coming to us, we plan to do the same, you know, and that means our employees will reap the benefits from that. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Well, we'll take 3 more and then we'll wrap it up.
My name is Patrick Hilbert. I'm a lieutenant, training officer and safety officer for Jefferson Township. I also deal with some of our budget. I apply for a lot of grants. If there's a grant out there, they've probably heard from me. But let's go through these low ends because you seem to want the low end.
Hey, Patrick, can you lean into the mic a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Moreland, their low end is $3,500. That will buy a set of turnout gear and 1 nozzle. Kennard and Shirley, congratulations. They can get a pager each, one of these, and have $100 extra. Sulphur, we can get 2 sets of turnout gear, which does me good. I've got 20 guys. So that's the low end that you want. For some, that low end's a joke. A single pager. 1. These departments have 20, 15 guys. So let's look at that.
I appreciate it. Even if past at 0.05%, we know it's going to be a drop to what expenses actually are. And fire truck's just a dream. I think you look familiar. Could you identify yourself for those who aren't familiar
Jeff
with you?
Beal, I'm with the Moreland Volunteer Fire Department, also the secretary for the county association. Shannon, thanks for all your help, everything you done for us. when we talk about our budgets, the only money that we have as budget comes from property tax from our townships. A lot of that money in our budget is fundraisers. We don't like being professional fundraisers, but we have to do it to survive. 2020, the Indiana Volunteer Firefighter Association done a cost saving studies, which I shared with Shannon. I hope everybody got to see it. Volunteer firefighters actually saved the state of Indiana $4.7 billion. It also tells in there if the volunteers go away in those townships, property taxes would raise. The minimum was 100% and the highest one's 356% to replace them with career paid firefighters. So that's something to think about. And one last comment, the Henry County Volunteer Fire Departments are the only emergency service group in this county that is not funded by county government. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Two more. And here comes one of two. If you, again, please identify yourself.
My name is Martha Beal. I'm with the Moreland Fire Department. We have a station that was built in 1946. It's going to cost us almost $2 billion. We have a budget of $30,000. $24,000 of it is insurance. We don't have the money. The last truck we got is a 27-year-old truck, and it cost us $30,000 to lower it. They will not lower trucks anymore. If we get a new truck, we can't even get it in our station. We don't have the money. We've got the fair coming up. That's our biggest fundraiser. If we make $10,000 after expenses, we're going to be lucky. That's not going to go towards a $2 million station. I mean, it will, but how many years? How many years is that price going to go up on that station?
A 20-year bond.
Yeah. It's a 20-year plan, but now that $2 million station is going to be $5 or $6 million, so now we've worked, we've got to have help. I mean, whatever we can get will be greatly appreciated, but we would love to have the highest amount. Thank you.
Understood, and I think well heard, well spoken. One more. I think Chad and I know that, yeah, go ahead. Third time's a charm. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is gonna be on Mayor York's behalf. My wife broke her back down in Somerset, Kentucky 3 years ago. I went through their EMS system. They are set up just like Mayor York's group is, or Brian Clark's, and the medic units are over here. They average 4 to 5, 6 trucks on duty at all times, staffed. They rotate their ambulances out every 2 years, all of them. There's no reason why I should drive by State Road 3 and see half their trucks sitting down there at the, whatever the name of that place is, where they, Hoosier place over there. They shouldn't have to worry about that. He shouldn't have to reduce manpower so he can pay for what he's got. I don't know if what he's doing is part of this, but I'm just trying to talk on behalf of the medic units, because we use them. We're hoping to sometime use Henry County's medics as soon as they go ALS. But these guys do a good job. They shouldn't have to worry about their truck breaking down. They come to run the Knightstown last week, and they had to worry about making it back because their truck was overheating. Whoever was on duty at that time told me that before they left. But they need help with their medic units just as much as our fire departments do. So, hey, thanks for your time. I'm got to meet some of you, but thank you.
I know everyone who spoke is heartfelt. We're going to close the public hearing part. We thank you for everybody here and everyone who shared. And I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody up here. It's not falling on deaf ears. And we realize the need is great. comments, Newcastle Council, Henry County Council, thoughts, comments, feedback, questions?
I just want to echo that, Ken, and most of you have been sitting on those terrible hard seats for 2.5 hours, listening, waiting for your chance to speak. I think everybody in the room wants the same thing. We want to continue to be a safe and vibrant community. And the folks in the audience are absolutely, you guys are the community. And this is really tough because we don't want to raise taxes. I think we all identify as fiscally conservative. No one wants to pay taxes. We're in a really tough position. So you've given me a lot to think about, and I know we all want to get to the same place, and we want to do it efficiently and effectively with the taxpayer money. So I just thank everybody for speaking up.
I'm sure there's other people that'd like to say something over the last hour and a half of listening to testimony and comments.
I'll just have a quick comment on reserves. $6 million is not a lot. When you, thank you. You think of a project to run infrastructure for sewage or water or something like that. I know of one project that's been trying to get going. It's a $25 million project. Things are very, very expensive, and all it takes is a couple of seemingly small things to all of a sudden be in a spot where maybe those reserves can be really stressed. So I just think it's worthwhile to keep that in mind when considering the fact that, yes, we do have a little cushion, but a little cushion, it's nice, but it can disappear very quickly. And those are things we have to, like I said, keep in mind as we work forward to whatever we end up doing here for the future.
Thank you. Anyone on Newcastle or Henry County have any comments or thoughts? My only thought, and I don't think it's a newsflash that we're probably in better financial shape currently than what Newcastle is. We dug ourselves out of, if you read the newspaper, he's left. Okay. At any rate, and Corey's tried to defend why we don't get more from the state. He did a pretty good job overall. My calculations is we could adopt a 0.12, give the fire departments 0.05, and still give the Henry County average raise 10% over the next 2 years. And after that, we can see where I don't think we can do it in a year. I think we can be more prudent, but those are my calculations. I think Chad and I, if we got together, he would prove my calculations correct, but something has to be done. There's no doubt about it. We are underpaying valued employees, all employees, public safety, and non-public safety. We are underpaid, and I've said that 5 times. I'm repeating myself, so it's up to somebody else to comment.
I can see this. In 2016, when this was passed, Sheriff Sproles is right. That you guys were not due diligence with the money when it went to law enforcement. You guys were trying to polish a turd over here on 12th Street with that money. And that's why you use low at 4. You didn't use it to give the pay raises to the deputies. I'm not saying everybody on this council because you weren't on it, but that's what you used the money for, put new roof on, fix the plumbing,
I agree.
on and on.
I agree.
We didn't.
I agree.
You might be in better financial shape than we are now, but it was because we didn't get due diligence with our insurance, period. Not with our law enforcement officers or our fire department.
Agreed. Agreed. When we took office in 2019, we realized in the first budget hearing, public safety lit was not being used for the intent as was advertised and passed in 2016. I think it can be said it currently is. We're not there yet, but we're probably 90% there.
Then you need to make a public statement that you're going to get these deputies to where they need to be.
They will. I'm saying I don't agree it can be done in 1 year. It wasn't done in 1 year, but it can be done. and I think everybody agrees, it can be done and we want to do it. Public statement. It will be done. It may not be done in 2025. It will be done.
I also want to make the point that getting somebody to average is not really getting to average. Because as soon as you move something to the middle automatically moves. And so now they'll be below average again. The goal should be to make our people, I don't care whether it's our sheriff's deputies or our policemen or our firemen or our EMS or whatever, make them well-paid because they're well-trained, they work hard, and they deserve it.
Agreed. Is that a motion? Or if anyone else.
Yeah,
doesn't
I'll
have-
make a motion. Let's move on for a vote.
Okay, if anyone else doesn't have a comment, I'm open to a motion by anyone up here.
All right, I'll make the motion. I move to move forward with a 0.20% public safety lit increase.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I will just say that I think 0.17 is an appropriate rate to increase.
I will simply say it's higher than I would like, but I agree with Susan wholeheartedly. That's speaking from our financial situation, understanding not all situations are the same. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you get down who made the motion in a second? Because I don't remember. Of a 0.20 public safety lit increase. All in favor? We need a roll call. We probably do because we have like 12 people up here. Would you like to do a roll call of yours?
Yeah, you guys have to vote, so the name becomes opposed to the city, so you guys have.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that to me too. You mentioned that 2 weeks ago. Do you want to call in order,
No.
Shannon?
Yes.
No.
Mike, you want me? He said yes. No.
No. Yes.
It failed. We're open to another motion. Anybody on the Henry County Council?
I move that we adopt a 0.17% increase in the public safety lit.
Second.
It's been moved by Susan, seconded by Betsy. Any discussion? 0.17.
Yes.
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 Go to the others. I'm still thinking.
Yes. No.
No, but it's going to pass, so go ahead. No.
Kenan was very thankful. It passed before he had to decide.
I just did the math and know a lower number can get there in 2 years, so. Yeah, Newcastle,
I'll make a motion that we pass this at 1.7.
Second, 0.17. Yeah, 1.7. Same thing.
You have a second?
Jeff Hancock,
Yes.
Mark Hoover,
Yes.
Rex Peckinpah,
Yes.
Lynn Purdue, Aaron Dickin.
Yes.
it appears to have passed unanimously, and there's no one else here represented. So at this time, we have passed the increase of 0.17 in the public safety lit to the existing 0.25. So thank you. Everyone, cooperation, anything else needs to be done legally, Joel? Yes, so this part is concluded as far as passage of the public safety lid. Anything else? We have the fire department. It probably is due. All in favor of a 5-minute break to do whatever you need to do?
Second.
Passes. We'll be back at 7:21. And we'll take up the fire department request. Okay, it's past 7:21. If we could reconvene, please, as soon as possible. As soon as we have all people at their seats, Betsy. I don't think she left. Okay, she'll be back. Okay, I'd like to call the last part of the public hearing, which is the public hearing considering the volunteer fire department request for up to 0.05% of the safety lit just passed. Newcastle falls under the township part of the law, so we'll treat it separately.
Mr. Gray,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass the 0.05 for all the volunteer fire departments listed.
Okay,
Rex, actually, I advertised that there would be a separate hearing on these. I know that people have pretty much covered everything they could, but I think probably if anybody else in the audience would like to address just the fire department request now, we probably at least open it up for a.
So what they got to do, what they're trying to do is convince me not to make that motion. You take it down to 0.03 by talking for a long
Put
time.
it on
We
pause
at
for
least
5
need to
minutes.
offer them the opportunity.
Okay.
Can I make, before we jump into public comment, we have, and I put papers with all of the requests in front of all the tax council members. There are 3 requests from volunteer fire departments that if you guys look at your papers, it says late requests. And there is documentation on there from departments that submitted requests. And there is some that are just email communications with some that asked about it, and they were all kind of told the same thing, that they were originally told that, I'm one vote, and if they submitted it late, it's up to the tax council whether or not they want to hear it. I then spoke with Joel, and Joel said, we've advertised for these specific departments to be considered. And if they didn't get their application in time to be advertised, he does not believe that we should address that. So I'm going to make a motion that the 3 departments, which were Dunreath, Liberty, and I'm going to forget the last one, Mount Summit, Prairie Township, those 3, my motion is that we not consider those requests on the advice of legal counsel.
okay, it's been moved by Shannon. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mike. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion? Is this both Newcastle and Henry County?
Well,
On the motion to not address the
Both
3
would
that
need to,
did not
yes.
meet the state deadline?
correct. Yep.
Okay. Do we want to do, let's do, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? 1 nay? Was it Mark or Rick? There's someone and everybody passed except Rex.
It's unfortunate that we did have late applications and fire departments who didn't apply,
Just indicate.
but hopefully next year everybody will apply.
Okay, we have until July 1st of 2025 to apply those 3 that came in late, and any of the other 5 in the county that didn't apply at all have an opportunity by next year. That passes whatever the number is to 1, and Rex is the nay. Okay. Now we'll open it up to anyone else regarding discussion from the public that's not already spoken relating specifically to the volunteer fire departments at this time.
Yeah,
And then
so
we'll
the
take
only
up
thing
Newcastle later. as a
I want to
separate-
say, Bobby Plummer, Henry County Commissioner, I live in Strawn. I just want to, and everybody knows how I feel about all the fire departments, especially volunteer fire departments, and they work hard. I am obviously most familiar with Strawn. These gentlemen, all of these gentlemen, I'm not just singling out Strawn, but Strawn is my home fire station. They work their rear ends off year in, year out, day in, day out. All of these fire departments get new to them vehicles that are 20 years old. Somebody falls, they'll call a personal phone number and say, hey, I have fallen. Can you come and help me up? Unless you are immersed in it as much as I have been immersed in it, I'm not saying that you guys don't understand the validity and the importance of these departments, but until you are immersed in it as much as I have been over the last 30 to 40 years, these people work their rear ends off for nothing. for nothing. So I would encourage you highly to give them the 0.05 or the maximum of whatever you can give them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. And I remember a call to you that you probably saved my life. Because I was too sick to get to my phone and you called 911 for me. So I appreciate that, and so does my family. Anyone else like to speak in about the 0.05% volunteer fire department? Former council member and future council member Chad Malacote, if I remember your name.
I could just say ditto what Bobby said. I mean, you guys just passed this tax for this reason. I think these guys deserve it. They work not for the glory, not for the fun. They work because they love this community and they put their heart and soul into it. And they operate on shoestring budgets, and even the numbers in this document that Shannon did a phenomenal job putting together is just pennies comparative to what they really probably would need. But I would strongly hope that you guys will pass it at the full 0.05% for each one of these that did apply.
Okay, thank you, Chad. I don't think anyone's going to disagree. Please, I know you, but please identify yourself.
Jason Roberts, two things that disappoint me. One, I talked to about a dozen people and they didn't have any idea about this meeting today. Two, where's the township trustees that allocates this money out to the fire departments fighting for their volunteer fire departments that worked their butt off? That's what aggravates me.
I think they were notified, weren't they? Yes, everybody was notified of the
Where
information.
they at? They should be up here talking, trying to
I
fight
can't
for their
answer for
money.
them. By certified mail, he's required by law. Every one of them were
The
notified.
guy who works for me, he's a township trustee in Randolph County and he fights for the volunteer fire department, but our people's too sorry to get out of the house.
Understood, and point well taken, understood. I know the Henry Township trustee was here. Thank you. We have one here. Strawn's here. The trustee of Henry Township, Travis Law, he was here. So we did have two out of the, I don't know. I don't know. At any rate, anybody else from the audience? Because if not, Rex has been anxious for the last 5 minutes to apparently make a motion.
I make a motion that we fund the volunteer fire departments at 0.05%.
Been a motion of 0.05. Did Jeff Hancock second it? Okay, any discussion? If not, probably need a roll call.
Do they vote and then us like the other time, or
I think we could do it this way. I mean, the motion's been made, so
everybody votes it?
yeah, I
Okay.
think you could do, I think you could have, yeah, it needs to be voted separately, but I think you could have.
Well, you made the
city make
motion. Why don't you go
first.
ahead and Rex, take care of your motion?
All right, Jeff Hancock, Mark Coger, Rex Peckinpah, Lynn Purdue. Aaron Dickon.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, comma, absolutely, because I was a librarian.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. I know fire departments who've been here for 3 hours, we appreciate not only what you do, but your patience to get to where I was hoping we would get, but thank you. At this time, we need to take up Newcastle, because instead of being a volunteer fire department, it's a paid township fire department. I'm gonna, just real quickly, if you don't mind, and I know that's gonna affect you. Any legal advice? Paige is here from Baker Tilly. It's a different animal because it's a different subsection of the law.
Sure, yeah, it's a different subsection of the same statutory section that allows a fire department, not necessarily just a volunteer fire department, but to request a specific dollar amount from the local income tax council to account for fire protection services provided to a government body that does not receive local income tax. So in this instance, the Newcastle Fire Department provides service for Henry Township. So it has made a request for up to $125,000 to account for service provided to Henry Township.
Any questions? turn it over to Rex because it's your baby, pretty much.
Well, I'd like to make the motion that we fund the Newcastle Fire Department to the 125,000 they've requested.
You made the motion that primarily affects Newcastle and Henry Township. Go ahead and vote first.
Jeff Hancock, Mark Koger, Rex Peckinpah, Lynn Purdue, Aaron Dickon.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Any other business? You did get a few handouts. Our budget hearings start next Wednesday, full slate. Anything else from anyone? If not, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Explanation point.
Debbie's got them. Right here. Yeah, it's a joint resolution, so. I think I got it. It was a little tricky. Actually, split up townships. I really had to believe that thing. It's two of them. It's 700 south. Yeah, but it makes me trip. It's been crazy. Okay.